What I've been speaking about and writing about is that we're going through a collective rite of passage. And the reason I'm saying that is the classic elements of initiation, which is usually described as three steps, with the first step being separation, where a person feels separated from regular life, from their routines, from other people, whatever the separation might be. That's the beginning. And I'm suggesting that um, the archetype of initiation, to put it in psychological terms, is the dynamic of transformation. So that's a background idea. Whenever transformation is happening or required, the dynamic of it is the archetype of initiation. So first step is separation, which often has hints of death. And that can be things just feel like it's dying. It doesn't have to be literal death. And once the separation occurs, it moves into the second step, which is often seen as challenge, ordeal, suffering, descent, so that it isn't a movement upward into spirit to begin with. It's actually a descent into soul, you could say. And that's usually the most extended period. And the other idea that goes along with the second step of initiation for me is liminality. Limen being the Latin word for the bottom, the threshold of a doorway. So that initiation puts people betwixt and between, betwixt who they were and who they thought they were, and yet not yet at the place where they are becoming someone else. And I say that's happening to us collectively, that entire cultures now are betwixt what they used to be or thought they were, but not yet arrived at a place that can be defined or clearly stated. And then the third step is the return to a sense of community, which usually has with it the idea of a conscious recognition of what has changed. So that's one way to describe the three steps. And I think the separation is clear. The pandemic, the coronavirus has literally made people separate. It has made people isolated, and it has made death a subject throughout the world. In Western world, where death is not typically a subject, every day there's a count of how many people died. And so all the elements of separation and the beginning of initiation are there. And then suffering, challenge, ordeal, betwixt and between, descent, with descent being a key thing. So that most people experience the separation, went into a descent psychologically, which for most people can be overwhelming, especially if they don't understand how the psyche works, because soul likes descent. Soul thinks that we're intentionally going into the deeper areas to find aspects of ourselves that are not yet conscious. But since people don't know that, they think feeling isolated, feeling sad, feeling anxious, people think those are all bad things. But in the psyche, when seen as part of transformation, those are necessary things. And then the big problem in all consideration of rites of passage or initiation is the return. And I say that because almost all people 20 years or older have experienced separation, loss, some kind of descent, psychological turbulence, but hardly anyone has experienced a return to a meaningful, soulful community with a conscious recognition of changes that have occurred. So there's a big problem that is collectively what comes next. Most people think they want to go back. You hear people saying they want to go back to normal. That's because they don't understand that transformation means you go forward without knowing where you're going. But people don't want to experience that, so they get nostalgic or desperate for something familiar. And initiation is about opening areas of the soul that are not familiar. It doesn't require that everybody agree on the arrival. It's like in the individual psyche, not everything would transform at once. And so a person arrives at a completely new place with a deeper understanding, but it's not the same as understanding everything. And so I think in terms of collective rite of passage, everybody doesn't have to agree, and everybody doesn't even have to understand what's going on. A core percentage proportion of people, and I don't know what proportion it is, are enough to shift the whole thing. That would be the theory.